from wherever you're tuning in from. Welcome to the very first episode of the UDADU, that is the Ubuntu Disability Action for Development Uganda. My name is Katsime Winfred, and I'm the Communications Officer, and I'll be guiding today's conversation. At UDAD, our mission is simple yet powerful: to advocate for inclusion, empowerment, and protection of persons with disabilities, especially in the last-mile communities. Education is one of the most important pathways to achieving that mission, and inclusive education is at the heart of today's discussion. In Uganda, thousands of learners with disabilities still face barriers that prevent them from accessing quality education, from inaccessible classrooms to lack of trained teachers and resources. And these challenges not only limit opportunities, but they also deepen social exclusion. That's why UDAD, our organization, is using this platform to elevate conversations around inclusive education, engage experts, and also the spotlight solutions that can make a difference. And today with me, I have a great guest of ours, Dr. Nizeimana Pamela, also a board member of this organization. We're happy to have you, Doctor.
Thank you.
For the introduction purposes, Dr. Pamela is a seasoned researcher in the curricular and educational programs, as well as a special needs education teacher, teacher trainer, and mentor for the young people with and without disabilities. She has taught at every level, from primary schools to universities, and served for more than 10 years as a teacher and 7 years as a policymaker in educational support and supervision. Academically, she holds a bachelor's degree in special needs education from Chambogo University, 2 master's degrees, one in administration and planning from UCU, and another in special needs education from Kenyatta University, and also a PhD in education from Veer Namad, South Gujarat University in India. Her areas of specialization include special needs education, inclusive education, administration and planning in education, curriculum development, and research methods. She has carried out research spanning over 2 decades. And currently, she focuses on overseeing and conducting research on curricular and educational programs, instructional materials, policy influence, and research collaborations. And right into the questions, Dr. Pamela, I'm going to ask you basing on the understanding of inclusive education. So I would like you to help us understand what inclusive education really means in Uganda's context, and from your experience, why you think inclusive education is a critical right for every learner, especially those with disabilities.
Yeah, thank you very much, Win. Thank you for the great introductions that you've made about me. Straight to the question, inclusive education, you find that many people, different countries understand inclusive education in a different way. And in the context of Uganda, inclusive education is a process of bringing all children to study in the same environment. And it's not only bringing them, but to ensure that facilities are put in place to ensure that every child, every learner can access. So inclusive education can also come from a word include. You know, include means you bring everyone, not leaving anyone behind. So inclusive education looks at every child and ensuring that facilities are put in place so that every child, every learner in class can participate, can feel included, can be engaged without leaving anyone behind. Thank you.
Exactly. Thank you.
And the next one is about why I feel inclusive education is beneficial.
It's a critical
right for everyone, because let me bring it in this way. If a child with disability or a child or a learner with disability is not educated with others, where will that child go to work? So that is the first question. There is no employment where you will find only a person with disability. So inclusive education is very key, because these children will interact with others, will learn from their peers. And also their peers will understand that people are created differently. So it is very important to have inclusive education so that every child is accepted and even other children can know that disability is not inability. I want to give an example. One time when I was teaching in a school where we had children with disabilities, we could give them similar exams. When we give them similar exams, if a child with disability has performed very well, people may wonder, hey, a person with disability can also perform. So inclusive education is very key. It builds confidence among children with disabilities. It makes a child with disability feel that they are part and parcel of the community, and it also helps to remove inferiority complex among the children. So that's why inclusive education is beneficial, and all children should be allowed to go to school.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that submission. And I'm going to also ask you, like, basing on the barriers and realities in the last mile connections, like basing on different schools in different areas, based on your work, because we've seen you have a very long time experience in this field. So I'm asking, what are the biggest challenges learners with disabilities face in accessing education, especially in the rural communities? The issues could be physical, social, and institutional. So what are the main basic challenges?
Okay, thank you very much. As you know, the Constitution of Uganda says education is a right to everyone, meaning that every child should go to school. And during the introduction of UPE in 1997, the Universal Primary Education, it gave opportunity for many children with disabilities to enroll in schools to ensure that inclusive education is achieved. Despite all of those that have been put in place, children enrolled, but when they reached the schools, they faced a lot of challenges. The biggest one was accessibility. Sometimes when we talk of accessibility, people think of maybe Braille or sign language, but accessibility is general. When we are talking of accessibility, we are looking at the buildings. How are the buildings? Not only the classroom, but also the washrooms. Are they accessible? Can a child with disability move freely within the school environment?
Especially based on the fact that students have different disabilities, those
yes.
that use wheelchairs,
yes.
crutches.
Yes. So accessibility has been a very big challenge, much as the government has put in place the accessibility provisions. You find it is only at the classroom entrance. You go to the washroom, if they have provided a ramp at the washroom entrance, entering the pathway is not there. You find near there is bush, there are stones. So if you're on a wheelchair, even if the toilet there has accessibility, a child in a wheelchair cannot move to go there. So with that lack of accessibility in terms of physical, majority of children came to school and they never came back because it was very difficult. The second one is about the accessibility of resources. We have persons with visual impairment. Persons with visual impairment, they use a different format for them to learn, which we call Braille. Braille is a dotted means way of communication. So when children reach in schools, many textbooks were not in Braille. So children with visual impairment could not access reading and writing because there were lack of Braille materials. Then accessibility in terms of communication. We have children with hearing impairment. Their communication is through sign language. So when they go to school, they find no teacher who can sign. One time I was monitoring in some schools in a refugee settlement. They had a child with hearing impairment. Teachers were not able to communicate. So the child could go to class, sit, is not understanding anything. The child, what he did, he decided to be running away and just sit in the compound, play in the soil, play with the stones. And the teachers could not understand. And it was because of communication challenges. Then also when it came to teachers, who understand how to use Braille, how to use the sign language, how to identify these learners with different disabilities so that they can put a methodology of supporting them. It is also a challenge. But the government has tried. With the partners, they have brought what they call capacity building, CPDs, where they are trying to train teachers on how to support learners with disabilities.
Oh, because that was going to bring me to my other question, that how can partnerships between the organizations of persons with disabilities, for example, this our own organization, and any other curriculum development centers, like how would it strengthen inclusion amongst the entire community?
The different organizations come in to supplement what the government is doing. So the government should put in place provisions for training more teachers, for providing materials that are accessible, for ensuring that buildings within the school environment have ramps, wash facilities are accessible, so that every child, when they are in school, they feel comfortable and they can be able to run. And then the different organizations like UDADU, they should supplement government through training, through counseling. By the way, also there is a challenge of negative attitude, where parents still think a child with disability cannot do anything. That's so true. Most disability organizations can help in sensitizing parents and use role models. For example, I am a person with disability. I have a PhD. If they use role models like us, and the parents out there, they say, hey, that one has a disability, but she has a PhD. How did she make it? So they will have that interest to bring their children to school. So it is very, very important for different organizations to support government in mobilizing parents, sensitizing parents, and also supporting in capacity building for teachers. Also, they can provide teaching learning materials.
Yes, thank you so much about that. And I would like to wonder and know, are there like particular differences in the challenges faced by the girls with disabilities vis-a-vis the boys, like someone by nature of them being a girl, like the challenges they face away from being a boy, though both of them are having disabilities, but the nature, the fact that the girl is, like there is a girl in the picture?
Obviously, there is a challenge. First of all, even if you are not a girl with a disability, you know, a girl to go to school was not a priority.
Yes.
Until the UPE, the Universal Primary Education, came and gave a priority to a girl child. So when it comes to a girl with a disability, the parent will be looking at her. If she goes to school, what will I get from her? Because they look at a girl as a source of income. True. So you are there in your crutches, you are there in your wheelchair. The parent will not think of taking you to school. So if there is a boy with a disability and a girl with disability, the parents will decide to send the boy and leave the girl with disability at home. Also, the girls with disability face a lot of challenges when it comes to mental hygiene. You know, they are not able to get sanitary pads. They are not able to help themselves. You are crawling, you are in a wheelchair, and then you are experiencing those mental hygiene that women go through. So girls with disabilities experience a lot of challenges, and a number of them drop out of school due to lack of sanitary pads.
Yes, especially in the last mile communities, that must be a very, very big challenge.
Yes.
And we hope the government really comes in to address that issue, especially in the issue of free pads. I don't know if the government is planning on anything to answer that query, but there is like an outcry to say that girls especially need free pads. Like, I don't know if the government is really having any thoughts on addressing that issue.
Yeah, the government has a thought because they have a department of gender issues at the Ministry of Education. That department promotes education of a girl child. And when they talk of a girl child, a girl with disability is not left out. And they have been advocating for free pads for girls. In addition to that, different organizations have come on board to provide free pads for girls, although it's not enough. So we need UDADU to come on board also to support that initiative to ensure that these girls with disabilities are supported and they can stay in school.
Okay, thank you so much for that. And I'm also going to ask you on the practical strategies, are there particular practical, like something is so practical it can be visibly seen by anyone, like the practical strategies that the schools and communities can adopt to promote inclusive education, because this is like the main topic for today. So are there any practical strategies that can be adopted?
Very much. The first strategy, we had an organization which was implementing inclusion for all, and they established clubs, inclusive clubs in schools. And those inclusive clubs were not for children with disabilities only, but it brought on board other children so that they can learn from one another. And also they established inclusive committees in schools where they bring an LC on that committee, they bring on board a parent on that committee. So those inclusive education committees in schools will help to mobilize for education of children with disabilities.
Yeah, I cannot affirm that because I've seen it before. Like on every committee, they always include someone with like a special need to represent the rest of the students.
Yes.
Yes, thank you so much. And like, how can parents, the local leaders, the government, and other organizations of persons with disabilities support the learners with disabilities in their educational journey?
First of all, the parents should know that this learner or this child with disability is their responsibility. The Children's Act provides that parents should take responsibility of providing for education of their children and also to register them with the government so that in case there is support, they can be supported. So when parents play their role to bring their children to school, provide learning materials, the children will be able to learn. Then in a school, the school should be welcoming. There are schools where a parent can take a child and the school will refuse because they look at the child that this child is a burden, he will not manage. So schools should be welcoming, register the children with disabilities, give them the provision so that they can be able to learn like any other child.
Okay, so that means the government should add an extra effort. Every time they are like to register a school, they should make sure it has the provision for inclusivity if the school will be in position to like support the
children with disabilities. Actually, it is provided for in the Persons with Disabilities Act 2020.
But it's not implemented in most schools.
It is not implemented fully, and that's why we are calling for UDADU to come in to support. As government has tried to do what it can, and we would need different organizations to come and supplement because there is a will of ensuring that every child goes to school. So the community can also play a role by mobilizing for education of children with disabilities, especially the local councils, local council 1. There are parents who still hide their children, so it is the responsibility of a local councillor, a local council member to ensure that they mobilize the parents to take their children to school. So those are some of the roles that they can play.
Okay, could you be having like a personal story, like a case study from your own experience that illustrates most of these barriers like that are faced by students with disabilities?
One time there was a school in Kampala, a child with albinism. The parents were able to pay school fees. The parents were able to bring the child to school. But when the child was brought to school, the school refused that child. And the statement, they said, hey, with that skin, we cannot manage that child. So the parents felt intimidated. The parents felt bad. You know you have that child and you are willing to support. When you take the child, the other people, the attitude is negative. So that is the worst experience that I had. And that girl is not the only one. There is a lot to be done to mobilize, to sensitize the community, sensitize the schools, to ensure that they accept children with disabilities. There is another child, he has no hands. He writes with the mouth. So when he finished the P7, he got over 6 aggregates. And he was admitted in a good school where he put. When they saw the child coming, everyone ran away to hide because they said, these results are for this child. He writes with the mouth because he has no both limbs. The upper limbs and the lower limbs are not there. But very intelligent. The child writes with the mouth and he performed very well. So there is still a lot of negative attitude, negative feeling towards the children with disabilities. And all of this is also contributed by lack of skills. These people in schools, the head teachers, the teachers, they lack skills on how to support those children. So it is also a combination when they fear to welcome a child with disability in their schools.
They need a lot of sensitization.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that's like, it's going to bring me to the question of what exactly are the teacher training programs, like sensitizing the teachers that are going to be teaching these students, the school administration, and all the people that are going to be working with these students. What are like the specific competencies that these teachers should adopt?
The first one is a skill of being able to identify a child with disability in your class. If a teacher is able to identify a child with disability in class, the teacher will be able to group them according to their needs. That is key. After they have known how to identify them, then they will assess the children to see what do they need. I have identified this is a child with visual impairment, this is a child with physical disability, this is a child with hearing impairment, it's a child with albinism, and so on and so forth. So after I am able, a teacher is able to identify, will assess. A child with physical will need what? A child with visual impairment will need what? So that as they get to know, a child with physical will need accessibility. If the classroom is accessible, a child with physical disability will be able to study and perform very well. A child with visual impairment will need braille materials, Parkinson's machines, slates and stylus. Those are braille blind materials. If a teacher is able to know these are supposed to be in place, then the child will be able to learn. If the teacher has identified this child as having hearing impairment, and he will know a child with hearing impairment, the only communication is through sign language, and the teacher can learn how to sign. So the child will fit in the classroom and will be able to study. Children with albinism, they have a lot of challenges. Sometimes they have visual. They cannot see very well. Either they are long-sighted or short-sighted. They have a challenge of their skin. Exposing it to the sun, then you are bringing problems. So if a teacher is aware, they will be able to support those children. So identification, assessment, the skill of assessment, the skill of communication, the skill of using different methodologies. There are different methods that teachers can use to ensure that every child participates, which we call participatory methods, and ensuring that every child is taken at the pace where the child feels comfortable. So those are some of the skills that the teacher needs to ensure that these children are supported.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Pamela. We are going to have a very brief short break. Then we shall come back and continue with our conversation and go ahead to conclude it. Thank you so much, those who have been staying with us and following us. We are back with Dr. Pamela, who is still taking us through the topic of inclusive education, I wanted to ask a question about the NCDC, that's the Uganda National Curriculum Development Center. It's been
not
working,
Uganda National, it's National
National
Curriculum Development Center.
NCDC.
Yes.
Okay, thank you on that. It has been working on integrating inclusive practices. So from your expert view, where do you see the progress and where are the gaps?
Thank you very much. The National Curriculum Development Center is an agent of government which is autonomous, and their mandate is to develop, review, and review curriculum materials and instructional materials, and also they also have a mandate to carry out research. And the research that is carried out generates evidence to inform curriculum reforms, curriculum reviews, and the development of instructional materials. Under the Curriculum Development Center, we have a department of special needs and inclusive education. That department has developed materials to support learners with disabilities at different levels, especially for pre-primary, primary, and secondary education. The materials that the NCDC has developed to support inclusive education, they include materials for teachers, which we call resource book, special needs resource books for teachers. They have developed materials in Braille, which have been distributed in different schools. They have developed materials to support teacher capacity building in the area of special needs and inclusive education. Despite developing all those materials, there are still some challenges. There are so many materials that NCDC has developed, but they have not yet been disseminated to the stakeholders. So much as the materials are there, there is a need for dissemination so that as the people are there, they understand what to do to support learners with disabilities. Then another challenge is that there is still limited funding to develop enough curriculum materials into Braille so that every school where there is a child with visual impairment can access the curriculum materials. Then also NCDC has developed digitalized materials into sign language. They may not be enough, but they have been developed. So there is a need also to disseminate those digitalized materials, the manual materials, to support inclusion of children with disabilities. There is also training of teachers. There is a need to train teachers on how to use these curriculum materials to support education of children with disabilities. And you remember the curriculum materials that we develop are not only for children, they are also for teachers. And in Uganda, recruitment of teachers with disabilities has been done. There are so many teachers with disabilities out there who are teaching either in primary, pre-primary, and secondary. And such a teacher will need a curriculum material which is in Braille if the person has visual impairment. If he's a person with hearing impairment, they need a curriculum material which is in sign language. So there is a need to support the National Curriculum Development Center to continue developing more materials that will promote inclusion of children with disabilities.
Thank you so much, Doctor. My last question is going to be a bit to you directly. So if you are to prioritize one urgent reform in Uganda's education system so that it gets to favor inclusion, you're given an opportunity or a chance to prioritize and make a reform amongst the forms in the Uganda's education system, what would it be?
Yeah, thank you very much. Disability is big. When they talk of disability, people look at the physical disability. There are so many disabilities. The Ministry of Education developed a learner identification tool and a resource book for teachers on identification of learners with disabilities. And that learner identification tool has over 21 conditions. And those 21 conditions, not all of them can be catered for as I talk now. So the first priority which I would consider if I am given opportunity for reform, I would look at accessibility in general. Accessibility in general, it looks at communication, it looks at teacher capacity, it looks at physical environment, it looks at textbooks. How accessible are they? And then after that, I ensure that reasonable accommodation is provided. What do I mean by reasonable accommodation? Reasonable accommodation means you put in place the required materials, the requirements for a child with disability to access. I have been teaching and I have been interacting with different categories of learners with disabilities. If teachers can be able to sign, to use sign language, a learner with hearing impairment can perform. You can't believe that he has a hearing impairment. For example, for me, I'm a signer. If I'm here signing with a person with hearing impairment, people think I am also hearing impairment.
Yeah.
So bridging the communication gap will also promote inclusion of all children. Yeah.
Thank you so much. So, Dr. Pamela, I'm going to ask you, what role has are the government agencies playing in scaling up inclusive education? And in this, you'll help us rate the government on how it has performed and how it is continuing to perform.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I want to thank the government of Uganda for putting in place a platform for persons with disabilities. And persons with disabilities feel they are part and parcel of the community. For example, the government has put in place policies and laws that support inclusion, that promote persons with disabilities well-being. For example, Uganda was among the first countries to put up a law that focus persons with disabilities. This is the Persons with Disabilities Act 2020. This act has provisions for access to education, and it has provided that every institution that admits or enrolls a child with disability must be accessible and must put all the provisions that will support a person or a child or a learner with disability to feel comfortable in school. When it comes to employment, the government of Uganda put up a quota system, which is in the PWD's Act. So in the quota system, this ensures that youth with disabilities who graduate, they can able access employment. When it comes to access to universities, this is targeting youth because university it's after senior 6. So after senior 6, you are a youth with disability. The government of Uganda provided a scholarship scheme for students with disabilities. Although the slots, they give 64 slots for students with disabilities to be admitted in universities on government scholarship. That one we appreciate the government for considering that persons with disabilities need to access higher education. There was time Disability Summit proposed that they are going to increase the slots from 64 slots to 302 slots. And this is where the disability organizations need to advocate further to ensure that that commitment that the government made during the Disability Summit of 2022 to ensure that the slots that were promised from 64 slots to government admissions to 302, it should be put into practice. And who can do this? The disability organizations like UDADU. They need to come together as a joint effort to advocate so that a big number of students with disabilities access higher education. Then when it comes to teachers that are teaching children with disabilities, the government of Uganda put in place what we call capacity building CPD programs through support of different partners like UDADU. UDADU is a national umbrella organization which I feel UDADU can also subscribe to, so that we work together to promote the rights of persons with disabilities. So when you talk of rating the government of Uganda has tried to ensure that persons with disabilities are respected, are given opportunities as it is provided for in the Constitution, non-discrimination. If you may be aware, in different commissions, different councils, the government provided a slot for a person with disability to represent the views and issues of persons with disabilities in different commissions. And we have very many commissions. I don't know whether there is statistics to show that every commission, every council has already put in place that provision. So it is also one of the UDAD, what UDAD would do to establish, since one of the program is research, to generate evidence to show that yes, the provision is there and it is being implemented. So it can help in planning, in budgeting, and in providing for the rights of persons with disabilities. So I feel the government has done a lot, and it is still needs to do a lot, because disability has different varieties. You cannot cater for all of them at once. There are other categories of disabilities like dyslexia. These children have become very many, and the government needs to come on board to ensure that such children are brought on board and are supported. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Are there like promising initiatives that Uganda can scale up, like a particular one where, you know, if Uganda does this, this is where we shall be, like this is going to be better, this is going to be improved?
The government of Uganda has already started. They have provided special grants for persons with disabilities. And this special grant is not only targeting those who went to school, but it is also targeting persons with disabilities who never went to school. So through that special grant, persons with disabilities can live independent life through doing different activities, business, farming, anything that can bring in income. So that is a very good initiative, and the government is also planning to bring on board Child with Disability Grant. This is a grant that will help children with severe disabilities who are at home to be supported, and also to support their parents to be motivated in upbringing children with disabilities. So much as the government has promised to come up with that child disability grant, there is a need for partners to come on board to supplement on government initiative.
Thank you so much, Dr. Pamela. UDAD is a community-based organization that promotes advocacy and ensures the rights of persons living with disabilities are respected and heard. Thank you so much, Dr. Pamela. And this brings us to the end of our conversation on inclusive education. I would like to thank you so much for your professional contributions and for guiding us on this inclusive education, and also being a disability advocate. We appreciate that so much. And like I also said, Dr. Pamela is also on the executive board of UDAD, our organization, and we really appreciate you for that. Thank you so much to our fellow listeners and those viewing us. We appreciate your love. Thank you so much. Please keep it up. You can always follow and find us on all our social handles. On Twitter, we are at UDAD/U. The website is www.udad.org. We also have a LinkedIn account. You can always follow up and catch us all the information that we have, anything you need to know about disability and advocacy. We always have it. Thank you so much for having us, and we shall see you next time.